start from the beginning or we just start where we left?
Let's just move on to the next one, and then we can just, if we want to recap what we said, then we can.
Yeah,
Well,
because
Polly,
I
go
have,
ahead.
sorry, I have the link to the other video. So,
yeah, you're right.
It's like 6 or 7 minutes long already. So I think if we just like, you just tell me what you guys talked about, and then we just go on to the next thing.
Okay,
Basically,
yeah.
we just talked about the first part about the difference in beauty between the two poems. So we all kind of said our thoughts on it, and we haven't heard your thoughts yet. So if you wanted to share your thoughts with us, that would be great.
What was the first question? Sorry, I can't see it my side.
It says beauty is important in both of these poems, but in what ways?
Beauty is
important in both of these poems, but in what ways?
well, in the sexist poem, I feel like beauty is like double-sided. So like you see the perspective of a woman for the first time in our class through poetry, because we usually have only been hearing poetry done by men and in men's perspectives. But in the sexes, we see and they talk about how beauty is pretty much equal in both men and women. And then in the Lady of Shalott, it talks about beauty kind of being like one-sided, because it doesn't really talk about her beauty at all, just Sir Lancelot's beauty the whole entire time. And then at the very, very end, a little line about she's beautiful. So I feel like maybe beauty is kind of a little bit one-sided still, but hopefully transitioning into more of a mutual thing between both men and women. Does that kind of answer
Yeah,
your
I
question?
totally agree with that. I feel like as society has evolved and as we've grown as humans, then it's more like equal, and like girls have a say and guys have a say in what they want and how they do each other, rather than how it was back then.
Polly, are you sure you weren't connected for that first part? Because you basically said exactly what we were saying.
Oh.
So that's basically that we said just that we kind of connected better with the sexes in the sense that it shows both sides of it, that it's kind of a mutual thing, that men are attracted to women, women are attracted to men, that it's a natural thing. And then as far as Lady of Shalott, we said that it talked a lot about his attractiveness and whatnot throughout. There's lots of description of his appearance, and not till the end does it talk about her beauty, when she's dead already. So, yeah, basically that's what we were saying. I have kind of a question, I don't know, brainstorm question for you guys here in regards to that. Why do you think, like, at this time period in poetry, why do you think they focus so much on men's beauty rather than women's, or rather than keeping it equal? Why do you think it was focused so much on just men?
I think it has to do with money. Here, you can go. You can go. I'll go after.
Well, I feel like maybe at this time, like, I was reading a little bit about like some of the back history that Sister Ho sent us, and it said that during this time, I feel like ladies were there's less agricultural work, so ladies had to like look for jobs themselves. So like even the shift in society was changing. So I feel like maybe this author wasn't very supportive of that. And I feel like he really thinks that like, it's just how I feel, but I feel like he really thinks that like women should be like, should do certain things. And then when they don't do the things that in his mind they're supposed to do, then like the punishment will be, I don't know, there'll be like a severe punishment for them because they're not like doing what women are meant to be doing. And I feel like the change in this, in like society where like women need to go out and find jobs themselves is kind of upsetting to him. I don't know. Maybe not, but that's just how I feel.
Yeah, I feel like that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't know if there was like a right answer to that. Obviously, I'm sure there is, but I was just kind of curious. I was thinking about that. It just seems weird because I feel like there's been a bigger transition to where it's changing more recently, but like in today's day and age, women usually more focused on appearance and their beauty and things like that first is how you describe them. And men, it's kind of less about that. So it's interesting how it's kind of the opposite. All right, so next kind of question. It says, who is allowed to look at beautiful things?
I feel like definitely the men were allowed to look at beautiful things. And I feel like just like the same things that that we already talked about. Like, it depends what poem you're looking at, really. Because yes, men were allowed to look, but then ladies were allowed to look too. I don't know, but I definitely feel like the men were allowed to view beauty more openly than women were.
Yeah, maybe I missed it, but I feel like it talks a lot about the men, looking at the women and seeing their beauty. You don't see as much, which is interesting because it talks so much about the men's appearance and how they're dressed and all that types of things, but it doesn't talk about. It's not as straightforward about the woman was looking at the man or whatever like that. So it's interesting that the men's appearance and how they look they make lots of points about that, but they're the ones that are looking at the women and their beauty and kind of, I don't know, judging, I guess you could say. And so that's kind of an interesting dynamic in that sense, just because it's kind of the opposite of what you would think it would be.
I kind of feel like back in like the olden days, women really didn't have much but their looks, like as sad as that is, but like their moms would probably be like, oh yeah, like you're so beautiful, you'll get married young, or it was so heavily focused on their looks that that's just kind of like how guys started treating them, was like, oh, we'll just look at like how pretty she is, or if she's fit enough for me, or whatever it was that they're how they view women. I think that has something to do with it.
So I also I was reading through one of the articles. So it was talking about how. So it says the female body was dressed to emphasize a woman's separation from the world of work, and that's in 19th centuries. But so I'm thinking that just goes along with what you guys said, that maybe the women didn't really focus on the appearance because how they construct the society of that day, women meant to be at home, so they were staying home and do all those kind of work, and men were in public, like going they were like working for the governments and all those things. So I'm thinking that the men was they got more chance to explore the beauty, and it's like I compare it to the poem of the Lancelot, because how the women was imprisoned, like just staying and like weaving, and that's how the women of that day, they stay in the house, they stay at home and weave, while the men were out there and they were looking at the beauty of nature and all those things, but the women didn't have a chance to look at that. And yeah, I'm just thinking. So,
Well, and at the end of that, the poem, The Lady of Shalott, it talks about basically Lancelot directly talks about her, kind of points out in his words. He said she has a lovely face. So that's kind of, as far as that poem goes, the only time that somebody's quoted directly saying, "Hey, this is me. This is my opinion of how she looks." And so I thought that was kind of interesting as far as viewing beauty. That's the only straightforward one. I'm sorry, my daughter decided to join us.
I totally agree with that, and I thought that was interesting. I thought that like Sir Lancelot was basically like the hero of the poem. He is super handsome, and he has like all these adornments that make him even more beautiful. And he, at the end, you see that he's like caring and like, oh, so he's like pretty much the perfect guy. And I just found that to be interesting. Like when the lady playing opposite of him is like, you don't know anything about her at all. You don't know if she's beautiful. You know her surroundings are beautiful, and you know that what she's seeing is beautiful and what she's making is beautiful. And you see that like the guy she's looking at is beautiful, but and then even at the end, it says that she's beautiful, but you don't like even know what color hair she has. So I feel like the Lady of Shalott, you just have this picture. You have to like create a picture in your head when Sir Lancelot is just there in all his glory.
I'm curious what you guys think in the sexes. I feel like it really doesn't talk a lot about beauty as much as it does attraction. But it doesn't really talk about physical features or, I don't know, I'm looking at it again right now. It doesn't really say much about specific things that they're attracted to as far as appearance. So, beauty. It's just saying it's more just about natural attraction that they have that's, uncontrolled or whatever. I don't know. Did you guys have any thoughts? Am I missing something there? Or was it just kind of, you feel like it doesn't talk as much about beauty in that one?
Yeah.
Should we move on to the next question? Holly, I bribed my kid with a popsicle, so that might help. Next question says, is this different in each poem? So referring to who is allowed to look at beautiful things, is this different in each poem? And I think that actually, going along with what I was just kind of observing, I didn't realize what the question was about to be because I didn't remember that that's what it was going to be. But I feel like as far as what we were just saying in Lady of Shalott, it was just him seeing her beauty. It doesn't talk much about her looking at his beauty as much as it, the poem just kind of paints the picture of how he looks. But in the sexes, it's very much a mutual attraction. They're both attracted to each other. It doesn't, specify when it says like the line, "Can the gazer's thoughts control?" I think it's referring to both of them. They're both, attracted to look at each other and gaze at each other. And so as far as, who can look at who, it seems it's pretty equal in that one.
Sorry guys, my Wi-Fi was like frozen for a little bit. But I What are you guys talking about? What question are
Basically,
you?
the next part of this question is just asking how, kind of following up to who is allowed to look at beautiful things. It's saying how is it different in each poem. So the difference is in how you can, who's allowed to look at beauty in the two poems.
I think definitely you can see in the sexes that beauty can be seen both through men and women, and they're both seeking beauty and seeking traits that they admire, as opposed to in the other one, it's just really what the men is looking for in a partner or in the girl. That's what I think about the poems.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's the same thing. Because the same thing we talk about both women and women, and yeah. What's the question again?
Yeah, I feel like we already answered that question in reference to with the other question. I feel like
Okay.
Any questions about the poems? Like any personal ones besides the one that we've already talked about?
This is the last question. Just says, what are the effects of beauty on the viewer?
well, I feel like the effect of beauty on the seer for the sexes ends up pretty well for both sides. Is that what the question's asking? Like how the effects of the viewer or the viewer us? But anyways,
It's kind of vague.
okay. And then I think the effects for the Lady of Sherlock were obviously catastrophic. They like I feel like it's very uh yeah, it's deadly for her.
I feel like how you treat someone based on their beauty really does affect the viewer. It affects everyone in the situation. Like if you, I don't know, are rude to someone because of how they look, or you give extra attention to someone because of how they look, or I don't know, just being mindful of other people's physical traits. And if you treat them differently, I think that it really does affect them. And I think that, I don't know, that the Lady of Shalott, that's like a great example. Is there anything else that you guys think about the poems?
No, I think we've pretty much answered all the questions. Did anyone else have any other thoughts or insights they wanted to share?
I'm good.
Yeah, same. I think we got enough and talked a lot about the things you're supposed to talk about.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of stuff as far as beauty has gotten between the last two has been just a little bit redundant, to be honest. But it is good. We've kind of seen some different sides of it now.
Got the points down. I think we're all aware of, we're all on the same page with the poems. Okay, so for this week, who wants to do the writing, or do we all do individual ones for this time? I can't remember.
It's just one of us writes a page
Okay.
and a half, or like a page or a page and a half. You just whoever writes it just has to write all of our names on the paper, and then I'll just send the link to whoever wants to write it. So we each have to write two or three papers, depending if the fifth person comes into our group or not.
Okay.
But Ola and I have both written papers for.
I can do this one. I don't care.
Okay. I can do the next one then. We can just do it like that, and then we'll
Okay.
see if the other person joins.
Okay, sounds good. Oh,
Okay.